Will Scott Drew be the next head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats? Here's why I will be up all night, worried sick. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you and welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We are powered by the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. And today we have a lot to go over because, yes, we will address the elephant in the room. Kentucky is going to have a head basketball coach vacancy, and the guy they want is Scott Drew. And what Baylor would need to do to keep him here, how much of a reality this could be. Oh, and also a great moment for a former Baylor baseball star, as you will see him debuting for the world champion Texas Rangers, probably last night. Anyway, starting with this, I had football stories planned, but that is on the back burner. We got the massive news Sunday night that John Calipari, the Hall of Fame coach that he is actually leaving Kentucky to take the job at Arkansas. And no sooner than that news broke, because at the time of recording, we still don't know if that's official, but no sooner than when that news broke is when we started hearing the rumors. And who Kentucky wants? Kentucky wants Scott Drew. They want him bad. They want him really bad. And Monday morning, we get the odds-on favorites from Vegas on who is going to be the next head coach of the Wildcats. And the odds-on favorite is current Baylor coach Scott Drew. We've heard this story before as Baylor fans. Big job opens up. Oh, look at the job Scott Drew has done at Baylor. The best turnaround in the history of college basketball. He's got them to be a national powerhouse now. He can recruit with the best of them. He's got McDonald's All-Americans coming there. He's such a positive influence, and his coaches go on to have success. This guy wins. We've heard that all before. We heard it when Memphis came open 15 years ago, which actually Calipari took that job. We heard it when Duke was open. We heard it when Indiana was open. We heard it when Louisville was open. None of those teams are Kentucky. None of them. You know, the Duke thing, I don't know that there was that much there. Indiana's fallen on real hard times. Louisville is a shell of what it used to be. Not Kentucky. Kentucky is the number one job in college basketball. Full stop. Okay? It's Kentucky, it's Duke, it's Carolina, and Kansas. Those four are way above everybody else in terms of the prestige of a college basketball head coaching job. When Kentucky calls, you answer. You talk to them at the very least. So, yeah, those other ones where we were like, Louisville, come on. You know, Indiana, not this century, no way. But when it's Kentucky, you listen. And you, as the Baylor fan, you sweat and you stay up at night and you try to rack your brain around, could this actually happen? Because the answer is yes. Yes, it could. It could actually happen. That's what makes this time different from all the rest that we've heard all down the years of here's where Scott Drew's going to end up because it's so much better than Baylor. Because right now, I know we heard this discourse the last month. Louisville right now is not a better job than Baylor. Indiana right now, not a better job than Baylor. Kentucky is the number one job. They have more tradition than you could wave a stick at. They've got more tradition than just about anyone in college basketball. And they don't suck right now. They're still in a good spot. That's why I pause when I hear Kentucky wants Scott Drew. That's why I pay attention when they say that. Because this is the toughest job in basketball to say no to. That's why. That is why. But we also know Scott Drew's a different cat, man. And if he was 10 years younger than he is right now, I might not even be sweating because I might think it's a done deal. He's gone. But he has built this thing from the ground up. He has brought it to that national powerhouse status. He gets the pick of just about any player he wants to come and play here. He's got the best assistant coaches in basketball. He's getting paid pretty handsomely, over $5 million a year, it seems. And he's got a new arena. And he's a legend here. He could do whatever at Baylor. He could have losing seasons the next 5 years. He probably won't even get fired. He's got it all here. And yes, Baylor is not Kentucky, but that gap has closed significantly the last 10 years because of Scott Drew. And we heard what he said after the Louisville rumors. He said, "This is my home. This is my family's home." He's got a daughter that goes to Baylor. Like, this guy is Baylor through and through. Okay? Make no mistake. But this is Kentucky. And it's a challenge, and it's the pinnacle of college basketball. And I don't mean what I'm about to say in like a mean way, but Scott Drew, you know what else he was also really ingrained with? You know what other school he was really a part of the culture and the fabric of? Valparaiso. And he left to coach at a better opportunity like Baylor. I don't want to sound like I just have Kentucky all down my throat here, but it means something to put on your, like a kid that grows up loving college basketball and wanting to be a college basketball coach. It means something to have on your tombstone, coached at the University of Kentucky. That still means something. And what Scott was able to do here, he might be thinking, like a lot of Kentucky fans are thinking, well, think of what I could do at UK. So I can't, as much as I would want to do this, I cannot just quickly dismiss the University of Kentucky of all places. There are 3 or 4 jobs in college basketball that would really, really be agonizing to hear that they're going after Scott Drew. This is one of them. So personally, I think Scott's going to stay. I think he is that rare breed. That's my thought. In fact, I would have it 70-30 that he would stay personally. But that is way, way different than Louisville. I had 0%, 0. And some of these other jobs that came up, maybe 10%. That 30%, that's a lot different. And the counter argument to how much of, he's built here at Baylor, the counter argument is going to be, well, then what else does he have left to do? He's done it all. He's taken Baylor as far as he can take them. Now he can go win a couple of those things at Kentucky. I still think he stays at Baylor, but this is going to be agonizing, more so than any of the other jobs he has been rumored for. So buckle up, Baylor fans. This ain't going away anytime soon. Another thing that's not going away in the near future is all those sports that you can bet on with FanDuel. We are right about to hit the playoff time in the NHL and the NBA. Sorry, Rockets fans. I know you might be able to remember what that was a couple years ago, but it's like past the middle of April. And baseball now, too, is in full swing. So for you Houstonians, you'll be just fine. And FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on anything from slap shots to home runs to alley-oops and dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So easy, I can do it and win money off it. You guys have heard my takes. That's how easy it is. So what are you waiting for? Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make your first bet an automatic win. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on, LOCKEDON. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. I'm telling you, I'm not ending my spiel right there because this is not going away. But what I do want to give you is some more context to these things. Okay. Scott Drew is apparently Kentucky's number one choice, and he is the odds-on favorite in Vegas. They could double his salary, which is already near the top of college basketball. But I think whoever is going to Kentucky is going to get $10 million. I mean, Calipari's rumored to get about that at Arkansas. Like, Kentucky is going to pony it up. They're going to pay someone's massive buyout, and they are going to then give them a great salary. And one of the reasons Scott Drew is at the top of that list is because the reported buyout, now we don't know official numbers because Baylor's private. We don't know those things, but the reported buyout is about $4.5 million, which, you might be listening and saying, well, that's good. I feel great about that. Don't feel fantastic because that's the reason why one of the reasons why Scott Drew is at the top of this list, because you look at some of the other guys, and one of the other ones who I think is a great fit, who is second, by the way, in the odds, is Nate Oates from Alabama. Just took Bama to their first ever Final Four. He is cocky. He's younger than Scott. He knows how to win in that conference. He's at plus 300, where Scott Drew's at plus 100. But Nate Oates has an $18 million buyout. Kentucky can afford it, sure, but that's a lot. That's a lot. And looking at some of the other ones here, Richard Pitino is on the list. I'm sure Rick is down there somewhere, the former Kentucky coach, if they want to bring Pitino back for some of that Antoine Walker, Tony Delk magic from the mid-90s. Another one who is in the Big 12. A couple of Big 12 guys on here in the top 5 or 6. Mark Pope won a national championship for Rick Pitino. I believe he was on that 96 Kentucky team that knocked out Calipari's UMass in the semifinal. Just some more college basketball history nuggets there. Mark Pope, I think he's doing a good thing at BYU, but that's a huge jump to go to Kentucky. I know he's a Kentucky guy, but still. Kelvin Sampson's another one, just won National Coach of the Year. Jamie Dixon is even behind him a little bit too at plus 1,600. Sampson's at plus 1,200. But mixed in there at plus 900 is one that I think a lot of college basketball fans have forgotten about, but is truly one of the best college coaches of my lifetime. And that's Billy Donovan. You remember Billy Donovan? Yeah, he's been kind of coasting in the association for 10 years now. Yeah, he had a pretty terrific run at Florida. Florida was nothing before Donovan got there, and he led them to back-to-back national championships. And what I think is funny about that is we're talking about Kentucky. Them as, they used to go to the Final Four all the time, but they always had top 10 talent. Do you know the first school was to have 3 top 10 draft picks in the same draft? I'll give you a hint. It was Florida. It was Billy Donovan. It was back-to-back national championships in 2006 and in 2007. So if you put a gun in my head right now and said, who's going to be Kentucky's next head basketball coach, I would sincerely tell you Billy Donovan is. Again, he was on the projection to like superstardom, like walk in the Hall of Fame kind of college basketball coach, like a Mike Krzyzewski type of college basketball coach. He decided to go to the NBA. Mild, if any, success. He's just kind of hanging around, and he doesn't have a buyout, which is fantastic for Kentucky. So I think, to me, that's a no-brainer. Scott Drew would get the people more excited. Nate Oates would get the people more excited. But as much as I love Scott, Billy Donovan is a better college basketball coach overall when you look at all that he's done. Scott will always have the better rebound, but Billy's is not a bad one either. And he won 2 national championships and had Florida at the top of college basketball. The only reason we don't think of Florida and basketball the way we think of, I don't know, an Alabama or an LSU, is because of Billy Donovan. So if I'm a Kentucky fan watching this, I'm like, maybe Billy Donovan's actually the guy we want. And I promise that's not just because I don't want Scott Drew to go. But let's play this out. If Scott Drew is the next, or let's say this, let's play it out that he's getting that call right now. What can Mack Rhoades do to sweeten the pot here in Waco? Guys, I don't know what else he can do. I don't know what else. Like, he's got the caliber of player he wants in there. He is paid handsomely as one of the best paid coaches in all of college basketball. He's got a brand new, shiny new arena, and he's got an athletic department that is willing to pour a ton of resources into basketball. He has got an NIL deal with the basketball program that seems to be far better than what is in line right now with football. What else can you want? And there are very few schools in the country that will allocate as much of its resources to basketball rather than football as Baylor does. The percentage of allocation. One of those schools, though, is in Lexington, Kentucky. That's what makes it so tough. So tough. So thankfully for Baylor fans, I guess the silver lining in this, if it does happen, is you've got a tremendous coaching tree to pick from to replace Scott if he does leave. Obviously, that first call is Jerome Tang. Buddy, Jerome, why don't you come back here? You know, you waited all that time to be the head coach, and that's great. You had the Elite Eight run, but we still believe in you. This is your home. You really want to be the head coach here. And if for some reason Jerome's got it on Do Not Disturb or it goes straight to voicemail, he's having a bad day, doesn't hear it, then the call goes to Grant McCasland. Albeit a tougher one because he's been away from Baylor longer. I think Kansas State and Tech are very similar style jobs, you know, in terms of prestige and being within the same conference. But the downside to McCasland, who would love to have as a Baylor coach, if it's not Scott Drew, is he's further removed. You know, Tang's house is still warm in Waco. McCasland's is not. Another one who has a house still here in Waco that you could make the call to, John Jacobs. Happens. It happens. We see it with position coaches in football recently, but it does happen. Or you can make a call to him and say, I know you took the FAU job, and that's a great little position right now, but we could give you the Baylor head coaching job right now. What's better than that? What more would you want than that? So if it comes down to it, that is a good backup plan. And Baylor is a much more attractive job, obviously, than when Scott took it 20 years ago, but it's a much more attractive job than it was 5 or 10 years ago. Like, there's no reason why some of the young guys who are further down on Kentucky's list wouldn't listen to Baylor. You know, it's not going to be Dan Hurley, but there are some young up and coming coaches out there who you could make that call to. But I think that is so far in the future. There are plenty of dominoes left to fall in this college basketball coaching carousel. It's weird to see that in the second week in April, but that's the situation we're in. Poor SMU thinks they really missed out on this, but there are plenty of shoes left to drop for other teams and therefore ergo for potentially for Baylor. But this is not an offer or a rumor that I nor most of you can just brush off. Those of you who are steadfast in Scott would never leave, I commend that. I do. I commend that positivity. And again, for 346 jobs, I'm saying the same thing. But when it comes to a job like Kentucky, I just have a hard time doing that. And I wish I didn't have such a hard time doing that. Over to baseball. Your maybe world champion Texas Rangers are adding to their arsenal via the Baylor baseball pipeline, as finally Davis Wendzel gets the call to the big club. He was first in uniform last night, the 2019 compensatory first round pick, 41st overall, if I remember correctly. Davis Wendzel finally with the big club. Now that has come through some injuries. Obviously, one of the guys drafted ahead of him in that draft, Josh Young, another Big 12 guy, got hurt. And the guy whose name I can't remember right now, who just came up, also got hurt. So here's Davis Wendzel. And boy, I'm excited for him. Met him a few times. I went to school with him, but met him in the Cape League. Super nice guy, and a heck of a ball player, man. I mean, I'm glad that he can now be on the wall at Baylor Ballpark as Bears in the MLB, because then that makes me believe that some kid in 10, 15, 20 years will see that and go look up how good Davis Wendzel was at Baylor. Because I remember 2017, it was my first year calling Baylor games for Baylor Lariat Radio. I was actually doing it with Max Calderon, who is now the baseball SID. And we were at pretty much every game, and even in the fall, as a matter of fact. And I just remember seeing two guys, freshmen, who stood out to me. And they were Shea Langoliers, who in fall ball was just ripping the gaps. I said, this kid has a power stroke. And the other one was Davis Wendzel. Shea, you could see the pop right away. With Wendzel, what I remember just being so impressed with about him as a freshman was he would play third base. I think he played some first base. He played some left field. He did some DHing. But he was in the lineup every day. And I would look up at the scoreboard and I'm seeing, this kid's batting $150, but he's in the lineup every day. And I would go and see his on base was like 400. He just got on base all the time. He was wearing pitches. He was patient. He was drawing walks. And I said, Steve Rodriguez sees something here. I know that he can get on base, but that doesn't get a freshman in the lineup every day if they can't hit the broadside of a barn. This kid's coming down the pike. He's going to be able to hit. And it didn't take long, because it was in that freshman season we learned he could hit. 3 years at Baylor, 3 all Big 12 selections. And people will forget the 2019 Player of the Year in the Big 12. It was a co-player of the year, and they both played third base for the Texas Rangers. It was Josh Young, and the other one was not Shea Langoliers. It was Davis Wendzel. Okay, he was unbelievable in that 2019 season when Baylor had the best lineup in college baseball, definitely in the Big 12. He hit 367 in 46 games that year, 8 homers, 42 ribbies. Like, he was raking, man. And he was a all Big 12 guy all 3 of his years, career 326 hitter at Baylor. Like, I know it's different now, but you couldn't really separate Josh Young from Davis Wendzel in terms of the numbers when they were in college. And he's been a productive player in the minors, but it's been kind of a slow roll to get him up here. I mean, we're talking about really 3 seasons in the minors, 3.5. 2019, he gets the end of it. None in 2020. That's COVID, no minor leagues. And then 21, 22, 20. I think 21 was shortened too, if I'm not mistaken. 22 and 23. And I don't really count this year. He was up for a couple of weeks and he was knocking the cover off the ball again. He was hitting 3-something. So big congratulations to a Baylor legend, Davis Wendzel. We'll see for years the All-American honors for Shea Langoliers, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve that, but what might have got lost in the fold was that Davis Wendzel was with him every step of the way. And another guy who became a pretty good freshman that year in 2017, became the Sunday starter, was the next year's Big 12 Pitcher of the Year. He also plays for the Texas Rangers. That was Cody Bradford. So, history might not shine greatly on Steve Rodriguez's tenure at Baylor, but he had a great eye for talent and could bring these guys in. That's 3 major leaguers in the same recruiting class at Baylor. We're not talking about UT or LSU. We're talking about Baylor. That was a terrific run he had in terms of eyeing those guys for talent. That's also not including guys like Nick Lofton or Andy Thomas was a terrific player as well. But Jared McKenzie, who's going to be in the majors as well. What will be remembered about those teams is just not quite getting over the hump. They won the Big 12 conference tournament 2018. And in 2019, they returned everybody, damn near everybody. And the pitching got hurt. Obviously, Bradford had the shoulder problem. Hayden Kettler got hurt with, I think, a bit of a back issue and unfortunately wasn't the same pitcher. So you had to totally mix around your pitching rotation. But going into that season, that looked like an Omaha team, like legitimately. And one of the big reasons why was Davis Wendzel. So awesome that he's going to get his crack at things. I especially do like that he is playing for a Texas team because he is from California, Southern California, but anyone who saw him in college would have been shocked to hear that because he looked Texan. He had the big beard, the long hair, wore the camo, loved to go hunting. And all his friends said he was big a hunter. So he really embraced kind of the Texas lifestyle. And now he is going to be playing for a team that wears Texas across its chest in the major leagues. So big shout out and congratulations to Davis Wendzel. Go out there, make us proud. Okay. I know you will. Anyway, drop a congratulations down to Davis Wendzel in the comments and let me know what you think about this Scott Drew to Kentucky thing. Again, I sound like a broken record, but it's not something we can just brush off like we usually do. Let me know what you think about it. If you think I'm being crazy, if there's no way he leaves or why he's going to leave, drop that down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll be back tomorrow with your favorite show, which is, of course, Locked On Baylor.